I clutch grandmother Lila's hand-knit scarf, rubbing the soft yarn between my fingers as if somehow the texture might summon her spirit back. The funeral parlor smells like artificial flowers and furniture polish. I've tucked myself away in the corner chair, watching my family perform their version of grief. Mom dabbles at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, letting out occasional theatrical sobs that echo against the mahogany paneling. Every few minutes, she slips to the bathroom, emerging with freshly applied mascara and her phone clutched in her perfectly manicured hand. The soft click of her camera captures her sorrowful pose beside the gleaming casket for her social media followers. "This lighting is terrible," she mutters, reviewing the photos. Dad stands near the entrance, his voice rising as he argues with the funeral director. "These charges are completely unreasonable," he snaps, tapping furiously at his phone screen. "My stock alerts don't stop just because—" He glances around, lowering his voice. "Just because we're having a family situation. A family situation. That's what death is to my father, an inconvenient interruption to checking his investment portfolio." My brother Cole slouches in a chair across the room, head bent over his phone, thumb scrolling endlessly. The glow from his cryptocurrency app reflects in his glasses. He hasn't looked up in 20 minutes, not even when distant relatives approach to offer condolences. I close my eyes and remember the weekends at Grandma and Grandpa's house. The smell of cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings. Grandpa Walter teaching me to change the oil in his first delivery truck, his hands steady as they guided mine. "Hadley girl," he'd say. "Knowing how things work matters more than knowing how to buy new ones." A tear slides down my cheek. A real one. Later, we gather in Aaron Feldman's office. The family attorney's wood-paneled sanctuary lined with leather-bound law books and the faint scent of pipe tobacco. Mom immediately claims the central chair, arranging herself like she's posing for a portrait. Dad stands behind her, hands on the chair back, assuming the position of authority. "I was thinking we could list the Harbor House immediately," Mom says, inspecting her nails. "The market's peaking, and that view will fetch a premium. The boat should sell quickly too," Dad adds, nodding. "And those antiques." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Cole interrupts, actually looking up from his phone. "I've already got buyers interested in Grandpa's truck fleet. My startup could use that capital." Aaron clears his throat, silencing the vultures. He looks at me briefly, something unreadable flickering across his face. He pulls out a thick document, placing it deliberately on his desk. "As executor of Walter and Lila Monroe's estate," he begins, his voice formal, "I'm required to read their final wishes exactly as written." My family leans forward expectantly. Aaron adjusts his glasses and begins reading, his tone measured and precise. Legal phrases wash over us until he reaches the critical line. He pauses, takes a breath, and continues. "I hereby bequeath my entire estate, valued at approximately $31.5 million, to my granddaughter, Hadley Elizabeth Martin." The silence that follows feels like the moment before a storm. I blink, certain I've misheard. "The entire estate?" Dad repeats, his voice dangerously quiet. "There must be some mistake," Mom says, her social media smile vanishing. Cole stands abruptly. "What did you do?" he demands, glaring at me. "How did you manipulate them?" The accusation stings worse than if he'd slapped me. "I didn't." My voice catches. "I had no idea." Aaron raises his hand for silence, then reaches for his computer. "Walter and Lila anticipated your reaction. They prepared this." He turns the screen toward us. Grandma and Grandpa appear, sitting together on their porch swing. They look tired but resolute. "If you're watching this," Grandpa begins, "then our decision has come as a shock to some of you." Grandma's gentle voice continues. "Gregory, Serena, Cole, we've watched how you speak about us when you think we're not listening, how you plan for our money while we're still living." My throat tightens as memories flood back. Being dropped off at their modest-looking home, which apparently concealed millions while my parents attended networking events. Teenage me helping Grandpa maintain his small fleet of trucks that were apparently the foundation of a shipping empire. Grandma teaching me to bake, to garden, to live with purpose rather than pretense. "Hadley is the only one who ever loved us for ourselves," Grandma says, her eyes welling, "not for what we could give her." The video ends. Aaron closes his laptop with quiet finality. In the parking lot, Dad corners me against my car, his breath hot on my face. "You'll transfer control to me tomorrow," he says, voice low and dangerous. "You can keep 12%. "Darling," Mom coos, appearing at his side, Her concern as manufactured as her grief. This kind of money requires experience to manage. You simply aren't equipped. Cole looms behind them. Remember what family loyalty means, Hadley. Remember who takes care of who. I grip my keys tightly, feeling the metal bite into my palm. I need time to think. I manage, voice trembling but firm. Dad's face darkens. Remember who owns your apartment building, Hadley. Remember who can make one phone call and leave you homeless. They walk away, a united front of entitlement. I stand frozen, keys digging into my skin, the weight of $31 million, and my grandparents' trust pressing down on me like a physical force. That night I pace my tiny studio apartment, panic clawing at my chest. Everything I own fits in this room. My life as a school counselor barely covers rent. I have no savings, no backup plan. I sink onto my bed, fingers still clutching Grandma's scarf, when a pounding at my door makes me jump. Management inspection, a gruff voice calls. My phone rings. Aaron's name flashes on the screen. Hadley, he says urgently when I answer. They're planning to lock you out. It's illegal, but they might try. You need to leave. Now. Tears blur my vision as I throw essential items into a backpack, my hands shaking so badly I can barely zip it closed. I never imagined that inheriting a fortune would leave me feeling more vulnerable than I've ever been in my life. But as I grab Grandma's scarf and wrap it around my neck, her voice seems to whisper in my ear. Stand your ground, Hadley girl. Some things are worth fighting for. The following day, rain pelts the windshield as I pull up to Grandma and Grandpa's Gig Harbor home. The sprawling craftsman sits back from the road, wrapped in cedar and stone, modest in design, despite its waterfront location. Nothing like the gleaming modern mansions that have sprung up around it over the decades. I sit in the car, watching raindrops race down the glass, my heart hammering against my ribs. 24 hours ago, I was fleeing my apartment with a backpack of essentials. Now I'm about to enter a house worth millions that somehow belongs to me. The front door opens before I reach it. Miguel Alvarez stands in the entryway, his weathered face solemn. For 15 years, he's managed this estate, becoming more family than employee. Miss Hadley. His voice breaks slightly. Welcome home. I step inside, dripping onto the worn oak floors. The house smells like lemon oil and cinnamon, just as it always has. Your grandmother asked me to give you this. Miguel extends a small brass key. If things went this way. He leads me to Grandpa's study, where a heavy antique desk dominates the room. The key fits a bottom drawer, revealing a weathered leather journal bound with a faded ribbon. She said you would understand when the time came. Miguel squeezes my shoulder before leaving me alone. I curl into Grandpa's reading chair by the fireplace, tucking my feet beneath me as I open the journal. The first entry is dated 10 years ago. Gregory came today asking for another loan. Claimed his investment was guaranteed to triple within months. When Walter hesitated, he reminded us how expensive Cole's college tuition is becoming. We wrote the check. Walter suspects we won't see that money again. My stomach tightens. I flip forward several months. Gregory hasn't mentioned repayment. When I asked, he acted as if I'd forgotten he'd already repaid us. Walter says to let it go. It's only money, he says, but it's the pattern that worries me. I turn page after page, my fingers trembling. Serena brought designers to help update the house today. They measured rooms and took photos while she pointed out how tired everything looks. Later, I caught her photographing the silver service from Walter's mother. She jumped when she saw me, saying she wanted inspiration for her anniversary party decorations. The door creaks open. June Porter, housekeeper for over 20 years, enters with a tray of tea. Her eyes are red-rimmed. You're reading Mrs. Lila's journals. It's not a question. Did you know about all this? I gesture to the open pages. June sets down the tray. I kept records of my own. Mrs. Lila asked me to. She disappears, returning with a banker's box. Financial documents. Loan agreements your father never repaid. Startup proposals from your brother, all defaulted. She places a thick folder on top. And these are copies of property transfer documents your mother tried to get Miss Lila to sign 3 months before she passed. Claimed they were updated estate plans recommended by their advisor. I spread the papers across the desk. Thousands of dollars funneled to Dad's failing ventures. Cole's repeated requests for seed money that never produced results. Mom's attempted property transfers that would have quietly moved ownership before death. They were bleeding them dry. I whisper, For years, June confirms. Your grandfather insisted on believing the best of his son. Your grandmother was more clear-eyed. I find an entry from Christmas 2 years ago. Cole had too much wine at dinner. When he thought Walter and I had gone to bed, I overheard him telling Gregory, "When the old folks die, we're set for life." Gregory laughed. Our grandson laughed about our deaths. My throat constricts. I remember that Christmas I'd worked double shifts to afford the train ticket home. Mom complained about my shabby sweater at dinner while Cole showed off his new designer watch. The doorbell rings. June glances at her watch. That'll be Mr. Shaw and Miss Park. Marcus Shaw enters first, carrying a leather portfolio, his normally composed face tense. As Grandpa's financial advisor for 20 years, he's the only one who truly understood the extent of their wealth. "Hadley," he says, taking my hand, "I've brought the complete portfolio. You need to understand what you're protecting." Evelyn Park follows, her silver hair pulled back severely. Grandpa's business partner at Summit Freight for 3 decades, she carries a stack of company records. Summit employees are reporting strange visitors, asking questions about shipping routes and client contracts. She says without preamble, "Someone's digging." Aaron arrives last, legal documents tucked under his arm. "I've prepared preliminary protective measures. We need to move quickly." They gather around the dining room table, forming a circle of protection I never knew I'd need. Each brings a piece of the puzzle, revealing the empire my grandparents built and how methodically my family has tried to dismantle it. My phone buzzes. Dad's voice fills the speaker when I play the voicemail. "You have no idea what you're up against, Hadley. This can still end with everyone happy, or it can get very ugly. Your choice." While we're strategizing, the doorbell rings again. A courier delivers a manila envelope with no return address. Inside are my childhood photos with faces crossed out in red marker. "This is escalating quickly," Aaron says, bagging the photos as evidence. "Summit employees are reporting strange visitors. Your brother has started posting about your mental instability online. Your mother has called your workplace with family concerns." My hand shakes as I set down my teacup. What do we do? "File for emergency protective orders," Aaron says, pulling out prepared documents. "The evidence is overwhelming. Judge Carter will approve them immediately." "There's something else," June says. "Miss Lila set aside the cottage in Port Orchard in a separate trust. It's not part of the main estate. Somewhere safe if you need it." I think about my students, the kids who count on me showing up every day. I'll need to take a leave of absence from work. The weight of it all suddenly crashes down. I walk to Grandma's garden, now glistening with rain. Her roses will bloom soon without her to see them. "I never wanted their money," I whisper to the wet earth. "I just wanted them." But as I look back at the house where my unexpected allies wait, I realize Grandma and Grandpa gave me more than money. They gave me the truth, and people who will help me protect it. 3 days into my new old home, my morning coffee goes cold as I stare at the newspaper. The headline glares back. "Family Contest Suspicious Inheritance." My hand trembles as I scan quotes from unnamed family sources, claiming Grandma Lila suffered from diminished capacity during her final months. "They're really doing this," I whisper to the empty kitchen. My phone buzzes with a text from Aaron. "Gregory filed an emergency petition with the court. Claims Lila was mentally incompetent when signing the will. Call me," claims Lila. Before I can dial, a notification pops up. Mom's smiling face fills my screen, a screenshot from the local morning show where she dabbed theatrical tears while describing her concerns about elder exploitation. The caption reads, "Heartbroken daughter speaks out about suspected elder abuse." The walls of Grandpa and Grandma's house, my house, now seem to press inward. I set the phone down, breathing deeply the way I tell my students to when anxiety overwhelms them. Miguel knocks gently before entering. "Miss Hadley, you should see this." He hands me his tablet, open to a social media page Cole created overnight. "Justice for the Monroe Legacy." Already 400 followers. People I've known my entire life commenting about their concerns. "Summit Freight called," Miguel adds, his weathered face solemn. 3 clients received anonymous letters, questioning the company's stability. They're attacking from every angle. My voice sounds distant, unfamiliar. "Your grandfather anticipated this." Miguel gestures toward the study. "Perhaps it's time you saw his business journals." In the oak-paneled study that still smells faintly of Grandpa's pipe tobacco, I open the leather-bound journal from 1987, the year Summit Freight nearly went bankrupt during the recession. Grandpa's neat handwriting fills the page. Third bank rejected our loan application today. Lila says we should sell the house. I won't risk our home. When everyone says you'll fail, that's when you find your backbone. Tomorrow I'll speak with the drivers about a temporary pay arrangement until we weather this. I touch the page, feeling the indentations his pen made decades ago. The words blur as tears well up. There's more, Miguel says, opening Grandma's desk drawer. He removes a small USB drive. Mrs. Lila installed security cameras last year. She never told your parents. On Grandpa's computer, I watch footage dated the day of the funeral. Dad and Cole, methodically moving through rooms, checking values on their phones, wrapping smaller items in their coats before leaving. Mom photographing silver and antiques, wiping away fake tears between shots. They were stealing, I whisper, while pretending to grieve. Mrs. Lila knew. She kept records of everything. The security system chimes, interrupting us. Miguel checks his phone. They're at the gates, all of them. My heart hammers against my ribs as I move to the front window. 3 vehicles idle outside the wrought iron gates. Dad's Mercedes, Mom's Range Rover, Cole's Tesla. Should I call Aaron? Miguel asks. I straighten my shoulders, remembering Grandpa's words. Finding your backbone. No, I'll handle this. The intercom crackles. Dad's voice, professional and commanding. Hadley, open the gates. We're here to collect family heirlooms that rightfully belong to all of us. I press the speaker button. I'll meet you at the front steps. Summer sun beats down as I stand alone on the wide limestone steps. The gates swing open automatically. I want witnesses to whatever happens next. Dad strides forward first, briefcase in hand, expression controlled but eyes flickering with calculation. Mom follows, camera ready in a tasteful black dress, while Cole lingers slightly behind, shoulders hunched. This has gone far enough. Dad announces, projecting his voice like he's addressing a boardroom. We're here for great-grandmother's silver service and the Tiffany lamps to start. For that. Those items were specifically listed in the will as part of my inheritance, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. A will we're contesting, Mom interjects, her practiced concern slipping. Sweetheart, you're in over your head. Let us help manage things until the courts sort this out. Cole steps forward suddenly, attempting to move past me up the stairs. I'll just grab my stuff from my old room while we're... He freezes as lights flash and a low hum fills the air. The new security system Aaron installed activates, red indicator lights blinking along the perimeter. Trespassing prevention measures, I explain quietly. The property is now monitored by multiple cameras streaming to a secure server. Mom gasps dramatically, clutching her chest before slowly sinking onto the manicured lawn. My own daughter, treating family like criminals. The crunch of gravel announces new arrivals. Miguel approaches from the side of the house, carrying a leather binder. Miss Hadley, I've brought the complete inventory of household items as you requested, with provenance documentation. Miss Hadley? June's compact figure appears next, her gray hair neatly pinned back. I witnessed them taking items after the service. She announces loudly. I've provided a sworn statement to Mr. Feldman. A silver sedan pulls up behind my family's vehicles. Evelyn Park, Grandpa's business partner of 30 years, steps out, followed by 5 longtime Summit employees in company polos. We came to show support. Evelyn says clearly. Walter and Lila built this company on integrity. We stand by their wishes. Aaron's BMW glides to a stop next. He exits with a leather portfolio. Ah, perfect timing. I was just coming to update Hadley on the restraining order, but since you're all here, I can serve these papers directly. Dad's face reddens as Aaron approaches with documents. Mom remains sprawled on the grass, her theatrical collapse forgotten as she watches the growing audience with calculation in her eyes. From the street, a cluster of people gather, neighbors, friends of my grandparents, watching quietly, finding strength. I didn't know I possessed. I step forward. This ends today. My voice carries across the suddenly silent driveway. Every word spoken here is being recorded, every action filmed. You've shown who you really are, and now others are seeing it too. A news van slows at the property entrance, logo visible on its side. Who called the media? Dad snarls, his composure cracking. We did, calls Mrs. Henderson from across the street, waving her cell phone. Neighborhood watch. We look after our own. For the first time since Grandma's death, I see real fear in my father's eyes. He glances at the growing crowd, the cameras, the papers in Aaron's hand. This isn't over, he mutters, but he's already retreating toward his car. Mom miraculously recovers from her fainting spell, hurrying after him with one worried glance at the news van. Cole hesitates, looking at me directly for the first time. Something unreadable crosses his face before he follows our parents. That night, I stand alone in my grandparents' bedroom, untouched since their passing. Grandma's knitting basket sits beside her reading chair, needles protruding from an unfinished blue scarf. Grandpa's reading glasses rest on his nightstand, folded neatly beside a half-read mystery novel. The grief I've been holding at bay crashes over me. I sink onto the edge of their bed, clutching one of Grandma's knitting needles. I don't know if I can be what they believed I could be, I whisper into the emptiness. Dawn finds me still there, watching light gradually filter through lace curtains. Grandma made herself. Something settles in my chest, not peace exactly, but resolve. Later that morning, the team gathers in Grandpa's study, Aaron with legal folders, Marcus with financial projections, Evelyn with summit operations reports. I take Grandpa's seat at the head of the table, no longer feeling like an imposter. We need comprehensive plans. I tell them, not just defending against their attacks, but building something sustainable. I've prepared injunctions against further legal harassment, Aaron begins, sliding documents across the polished surface. Marcus taps his tablet. I've secured the accounts and investments with additional verification protocols. Summit's employee meeting went well, Evelyn reports. Once they understood your commitment to maintaining operations and jobs, morale stabilized. We're not just defending, I say, echoing Grandpa's steady voice in my memory. We're building. A soft knock interrupts. June enters, carrying a dusty cardboard box. Found this in the attic storage. Thought you should see it. The box label, in Grandma's neat handwriting, reads simply, "In case of Gregory." Inside lie decades of meticulously organized materials, letters, recorded conversations, financial records, dated and cataloged with my grandmother's characteristic precision. At the bottom, wrapped in acid-free paper, lies a small leather-bound book. My breath catches as I gently lift it out. Is this what I think it is? I whisper. June nods, her eyes knowing. Mrs. Lila said you'd recognize it when the time came. I hold Grandpa Walter's original business ledger from 1962, the founding document of Summit Freight, containing the legal framework that would make challenging the will nearly impossible. Our meeting adjourns with new determination. For the first time since the inheritance bombshell, I feel not just Grandpa's backbone, but my own. A week later, I am preparing to defend what's legally mine and protect my grandparents' legacy. I sit at Grandpa Walter's antique oak desk, running my fingers over the worn edges where his hands rested for decades. The leather chair still holds the impression of his body, a physical memory that comforts me as I lift the phone receiver for what feels like the 100th call today. Mr. Delgado. Yes, this is Hadley Martin. I appreciate you taking my call. I straighten my posture, channeling Grandpa's quiet confidence. I'd like to discuss the expansion of the profit-sharing program for Summit's drivers, effective immediately. The morning passes in a blur of meetings, each one another piece of the plan we've crafted. Summit Freight employees file into the study throughout the day, weather-worn drivers with calloused hands, office staff with curious eyes, mechanics with grease-stained fingers. Each leaves with shoulders a little straighter, eyes a little brighter. My grandfather believed a company is only as strong as the people who build it daily, I tell the gathered department heads. Starting next month, every employee participates in the expanded profit-sharing program. Healthcare coverage increases to include dependents. The education fund doubles. Evelyn hands out the detailed packets, while Marcus projects the financial models showing long-term sustainability. The room erupts in applause, genuine and warm, nothing like the hollow social media applause my mother craves. Dr. Reynolds, I say later, phone pressed to my ear as I review the community needs assessment spread across the desk. The foundation wants to focus first on vocational training scholarships. My grandfather believed in the dignity of skilled trades. The foundation expert on the other end speaks excitedly about implementation timelines. I jot notes in the margins of the assessment, circling areas of greatest impact. My phone buzzes with a text from Aaron. Gregory contacted 3 major clients directly, claiming family concerns about Summit's stability. I exhale slowly, feeling the familiar tightness in my chest. The desk phone rings minutes later. Summit's operations manager reporting that Mom showed up at my school, cornering the principal with concerns about Hadley's state of mind. Principal Kovacs didn't buy it, he assures me. Said your mother seemed more unstable than you ever have. A knock at the door reveals Miguel, his expression grim as he holds a sealed package. This was delivered by courier, no return address. Inside, a thick folder labeled Evidence of Manipulation contains photos of me with my grandparents, annotated with dates and suspicious questions. Email printouts of supposed psychological assessments. Medical records with highlighted passages suggesting my undue influence. I flip to the last page and burst into unexpected laughter. They've accidentally included their own threatening emails to Grandma Lila from last year, complete with Gregory's signature block and legal threats when she refused to transfer property titles. They're getting desperate, Aaron says when I call him. Good thing we anticipated this. The next morning dawns clear and cool as I prepare for the Chamber of Commerce luncheon. Dad had planned this moment for weeks, according to our sources, a public confrontation where I'd be forced to defend myself among the business elite of Gig Harbor. Ready? Evelyn asks as we pull into the country club parking lot. Marcus adjusts his tie. Remember, stay calm no matter what, we've got this covered. The banquet room falls quiet as we enter. Gregory's face darkens when he spots us, his body tensing like a predator preparing to pounce. I feel dozens of eyes tracking our progress to the reserved table. I've barely taken my seat when Dad approaches, his voice pitched to Carrie. There she is, the girl who's destroying our family legacy. Walter would be ashamed of what you've done to Summit Freight. Before I can respond, Chamber President Jack Wilson stands, tapping his water glass. Actually, Gregory, we're recognizing Summit Freight today for 40 years of business integrity and community service. Walter Monroe established this award, and we're honored to present it to his chosen successor. The room erupts in applause as Jack gestures for me to join him at the podium. My legs feel wooden as I rise, acutely aware of Dad's reddening face and Mom's frozen smile. My grandparents built Summit Freight on 2 foundations. I say, accepting the Crystal Award. Excellence in service and investment in people. Their legacy isn't measured in dollars but in lives improved. The standing ovation washes over me in waves. Former drivers share stories of Grandpa helping them through tough times. Charity directors praise Grandma's quiet generosity. The community college president announces the new vocational scholarship program, funded by the Monroe Foundation. Later, Aaron's press release detailing Summit's employee protections makes the evening news, alongside statements from June and Miguel about my parents' treatment of my grandparents in their final years. The effects ripple through town like stones dropped in still water. Gregory's business partners request distance. Mom's social circle excludes her from fundraising galas. Cole's startup investors withdraw after learning of the pattern of financial manipulation. The country club board puts their membership under review. I refuse every interview request, every opportunity to criticize them publicly. We focus on building, not tearing down. I tell Miguel when he brings me the latest invitation from a morning show. The first crack appears 3 nights later. My phone rings at 11:36 p.m. Mom's ringtone. Hadley, she sobs, voice thick with what sounds like genuine emotion. This isn't what I wanted. You have to believe me. I say nothing, letting the silence stretch between us. Your father. She begins, then stops. I never meant for things to go this far. The second crack forms in a text from Cole the next morning. Dad's losing it. I didn't know about the loans he took in my name. Can we talk? Just us? Gregory's attorney calls Aaron the next day, requesting a meeting without Gregory present. They're imploding, Aaron tells me afterward. Their united front is crumbling. That night, I sit on the porch swing where Grandma and Grandpa spent countless evenings, my journal open on my lap. The pen hovers over the blank page before finally touching down. Victory feels hollow when it's family. But what's the alternative? Surrender the legacy they entrusted to me? Allow the exploitation they fought to prevent? The breeze carries the scent of Grandma's roses, planted decades ago but still blooming faithfully each year. Standing your ground doesn't always feel triumphant, but sometimes it's the only way to honor what matters most. A week later, I called my parents for the final confrontation. I position Walter's antique pocket watch on the polished conference table, a silent timekeeper for today's showdown. The grandfather clock in the foyer chimes 10 as car doors slam outside. "They're here. Ready?" Aaron asks, straightening his tie. I nod, smoothing grandmother Lila's scarf between my fingers. As ready as I'll ever be. Miguel opens the front door, his face professionally neutral, as he escorts my family into the home they tried to strip bare, while Grandma and Grandpa were still warm in their graves. Dad strides in first, confidence faltering only when he spots Judge Elaine Carter at the table. Mom follows, her camera-ready smile freezing when she notices Daniel Brooks, former police chief and Grandpa's fishing buddy, standing near the window. "What is this?" Dad demands, stopping short. "We agreed to a family meeting, not a public tribunal." "We agreed to mediation," I correct him. "These are the mediators I've selected." Cole slips in last, eyes darting between our parents and me, tugging at his collar. For a fleeting moment, our eyes meet, and something like shame flickers across his face. Mom glides toward me, arms outstretched. "Darling, surely we can speak privately first? Family matters should stay within." "Family matters should involve actual family," I interrupt, my voice steadier than my racing heart. "Please sit down." Dad's face darkens to a dangerous crimson. I refuse to participate in this circus. Either clear the room or we're leaving. "We proceed with transparency or not at all," I say, gesturing to the chairs. "Your choice." After a tense standoff, they sit. Aaron slides folders in front of each person with practiced precision. "Exhibit A," he announces, tapping his laptop. The television screen on the wall illuminates with security footage. Walter and Lila, Monroe's home, the evening after the funeral. The video shows Dad and Cole loading paintings into Dad's SUV under cover of darkness. Mom can be seen carefully wrapping silver candlesticks in her scarf. Cole shifts uncomfortably. Mom's hand flies to her throat. "Family heirlooms we were safeguarding," Dad says, dismissively, but his voice lacks conviction. "Exhibit B." Aaron clicks forward. Financial records appear, each one highlighting unpaid loans to Dad's failed ventures, totaling over $4 million. Exhibit C. Aaron continues methodically through each damning piece of evidence. Mom's attempt to transfer property deeds while Grandma was hospitalized. Cole's string of defaulted startup investments, recorded phone conversations plotting asset division before Grandpa had even passed. With each revelation, Dad's rage builds visibly. His knuckles whiten around the folder edges. Mom's carefully constructed victim persona crumbles, mascara tracking down her cheeks. Cole stares at the table, shoulders hunched. Judge Carter makes notes without expression. Daniel shifts slightly closer to Dad when his breathing becomes dangerously rapid. Finally, Aaron opens Grandma's leather journal. In Lila Monroe's own words, dated the 14th of June last year, Gregory demanded another 100,000 today. When I reminded him of the previous unpaid loans, he suggested we wouldn't want Cole to know about certain family matters. I recognize the threat. Walter and I have decided, Hadley is our only hope for preserving what we've built. The room falls silent except for Mom's quiet sobbing. "You manipulated them," Dad accuses, his voice trembling with fury. "You turned them against us." "No," I reply, my calm surprising even me. "Your own actions are speaking for themselves." I slide a document forward. "This is my offer. A small trust fund for each of you, conditional upon returning all items taken from this house, and ceasing all communication attempts with me, or anyone associated with Summit Freight or the Monroe Foundation." Dad laughs bitterly. "Or what?" "Or I press charges for theft, elder abuse, and attempted fraud," I answer. "All documented in triplicate, and witnessed by a sitting judge and former chief of police." "You've turned everyone against us." Dad explodes, slamming his fist on the table. "No, Dad," I say, meeting his eyes directly. "Your own actions have done that all by themselves." The grandfather clock ticks loudly in the silence that follows. 10 minutes pass before Dad snatches the pen Aaron offers. The scratching of signatures feels like closing a book. As they leave, Cole hesitates at the doorway, looking back with an expression I can't quite read. For a moment, I think he might stay, might choose differently. Then Dad barks his name, and he follows them out. When the door closes, I exhale shakily. Aaron squeezes my shoulder. Judge Carter nods with approval. Daniel's weathered face breaks into a smile. "Walter would be proud," he says quietly. Standing your ground isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about knowing when enough is enough. I touch Grandma's scarf, still wrapped around my neck. I never wanted their money, I whisper. I just wanted to be family. I know, Aaron says. That's exactly why your grandparents trusted you with everything they built. Outside, engines start, car doors slam, they drive away, and something in me knows it's for the last time. I am my grandparents' legacy now, not their money, their values. And some boundaries, once set, must never be crossed again. 6 months after the final confrontation, I still arrive at school by 7:30, my counseling office, a sanctuary of listening ears and steady advice. The brass nameplate Hadley Martin, student counselor, remains the title I cherish most, despite the trust documents bearing words like executor and beneficiary. This morning, a small clipping from the business section sits on my desk. Summit Freight announced record profits under its new employee ownership model. Walter's trucks still rumble through town, but now 68 drivers have stakes in their futures. Miss Martin? My assistant pokes her head in. Your foundation guests are here. The Lila and Walter Monroe Foundation exists on paper and in $12 million of carefully allocated funding, but today marks something more tangible: our first scholarship recipients. 5 students wait nervously in the conference room, clutching acceptance packets. Their eyes widen as I explain how the Vocational Training Fund works: full tuition, living stipends, and guaranteed apprenticeships. My grandparents believed in building things that last. I tell them, now you're part of that legacy. Later, I drive the familiar road to the harbor house. The property feels different now, lighter somehow, as if the weight of secrecy has lifted. I park beside Evelyn's sensible sedan and Marcus's old Volvo. Inside, the dining room table that once witnessed my family's greed now hosts a celebration. June sets out Lila's china, while Miguel arranges Walter's prized chess set nearby. Remember our first meeting here? Aaron asks, helping with water glasses. You could barely speak without trembling. Hard to believe that was the same person who stared down Gregory Martin at the gates. Evelyn laughs. I run my fingers along the table's edge, remembering. Same house, same people, different Hadley. We toast with sparkling cider when Marcus announces the Foundation's first major project, a 3D printing laboratory for the community college's technical program. Lila and Walter would be so proud of what you've built, Miguel says, his eyes misting. That night, I flip through my therapy journal, tracing the path from panic attacks to purpose. Pages filled with grief exercises give way to recipes June has taught me from Lila's collection. Notes on Walter's favorite chess openings occupy margins near pressed flowers from the cottage garden. The old cat, Professor, finally allows me to stroke his ears as he settles on Lila's favorite chair. 6 months ago, he hissed whenever I entered the room. Progress comes in many forms. My phone buzzes with a familiar area code. Gregory's business has finally collapsed, and he needs a small bridge loan. 3 hours later, Serena emails her application for the Foundation's board of directors. Before bed, Cole texts about his newest startup. This one is different, I swear. The pattern remains unchanged. My response does too. Polite, firm refusal. On my 30th birthday, I'm surprised by a gathering at the cottage. No extravagant gifts, just thoughtful tokens, a vintage edition of my favorite book, Seeds from June's Garden, a handmade scarf. Evelyn raises her glass. To choosing your family by their actions, not their blood. Aaron updates us on the permanent legal protections now in place, while Marcus outlines the Foundation's growing community impact. The following Tuesday, a sophomore sits in my office, describing family pressure that echoes my past. They say I owe them, she whispers, that everything they've done was for me. I listen with understanding born from experience. When she finishes, I hand her a carefully prepared packet: therapy options, legal resources, boundary-setting worksheets. Your worth isn't measured by their approval. I tell her, words I needed to hear 6 months ago. At sunset, I walk the property grounds, stopping at the newly planted grove, 1 tree for each scholarship recipient. A small bench bears a simple plaque: Legacy Lives Through Love, Lila and Walter. I open Lila's journal to its blank final pages and begin writing my own entries. Looking up at the warm glow of house lights, I feel a peace that money could never purchase. The inheritance that matters most wasn't in the bank accounts after all.